Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. It started the day before she even got back. Her mother had called, asking if I'd heard from Claire lately. She hasn't been answering texts, she said, worry in her voice. I told her she was on a girls' trip, supposedly somewhere along the California coast. But as I said it, I felt that familiar sting in my gut, the kind that whispers something's off long before proof ever arrives. Claire had been distant for months, long nights at the office, phone face down during dinner, that empty laugh she'd learned to perfect when she didn't want to talk. I tried to believe it was stress. I'd even booked a surprise weekend for us in Napa last month, but she canceled the morning we were supposed to leave. Said she had a team project. So, when she texted 2 weeks later saying she needed a break, a girl's getaway, I told her go. Clear your mind, I said. You deserve it. She smiled that guilty smile, kissed my cheek, and left. But here's the thing about lies. They always echo somewhere. The first echo came from a photo on social media. Not hers, of course. She was too careful for that. It was a picture on a coworker's story, a reflection in a restaurant window, 2 wine glasses. And right there, half hidden in the background, was Claire, wearing the same coral dress I'd given her for our anniversary. And across from her, a man leaned close. His hand brushed hers. Mike Larson, marketing department. The guy who'd once shown up late to our barbecue and called me the lucky one. That night, I sat in our quiet house, scrolling through messages on the backup app I'd installed months ago, an app that mirrored her text to my phone. I'd never checked it before. I didn't want to be that husband. But curiosity turned to nausea as the screen lit up with messages that made my hand shake. Mike, can't stop thinking about you. Claire, stop. Someone will notice. Mike, let them. You're worth the risk. And then, Claire, wish this trip never had to end. I read that 3 times. The words blurred. My heart didn't break. It hardened. The next morning, I called her office pretending to ask about her return date. She's on personal leave, her assistant said. Visiting Aspen with a client. I think. Aspen. Not Malibu. Not a girl's trip. That's when I stopped being the naive husband. By the time her flight was scheduled to land, I already had everything prepared. The photos printed, the messages saved, and a calmness in me I didn't recognize. It wasn't anger anymore. It was precision. When her car finally pulled into the driveway later that night, headlights sweeping across the porch, I didn't rush to meet her. I sat in the living room, lights dim, waiting. I wanted her to walk in and feel what betrayal sounds like when it's silent. And as the door opened, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood, she called out, Danny, I'm home. I didn't answer, because in a few minutes, she'd realized this home didn't belong to her anymore. I didn't turn toward her right away. I wanted her to feel that eerie quiet that only guilt can fill. She lingered near the doorway, hesitating when she saw the suitcase she'd left last week still sitting where she'd dropped it. Her voice softened. Danny, why are the lights off? I finally looked up from the armchair. The TV was on, volume low, but I wasn't watching it. A travel show was playing, mountain peaks, snow, the word Aspen flashing on the screen. The irony made me smile. Thought you might enjoy the scenery, I said. She froze, a small tremor in her breath. What do you mean? I gestured toward the coffee table. Her phone lay there, her second phone, the one she thought I didn't know about. The screen was cracked from when she dropped it before the trip. She stared at it, color draining from her face. Daniel. Her voice cracked. Where did you? How did you? Let's just say, I interrupted gently, that trust works both ways. You taught me that. She took a shaky step closer. This isn't what it looks like. I almost laughed. The classic line. Then tell me what it is, Claire. Because from what I've read, Aspen seems to be quite the business hub these days, especially for marketing associates. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I could see the tears already forming, hanging at the corners of her eyes like confessions too heavy to hold. I didn't mean for her to go that far, she whispered. That far. I repeated the words slowly, letting them burn in the air between us. So there was a that far. She buried her face in her hands. It was one mistake, Danny. I was lonely. Don't. I cut her off. Don't insult me with loneliness. We've all been lonely. but I didn't go looking for someone else to fix it. Her sobs came quietly, trembling, fragile. And for a moment, I wanted to feel sorry for her. But pity dies fast when you remember the smell of someone else's cologne on your wife's scarf. You were supposed to be my peace, I said quietly, not my punishment. Claire's knees buckled, and she sank to the couch, wiping her face. Danny, please, I love you. It didn't mean anything. I swear to you, it was a mistake. He took advantage of how distant we were. I turned my head toward her, calm but cold. You booked a cabin with him, Claire. You sent him pictures. You called him home. Does that sound like an accident? Her eyes widened in disbelief. You read. I saw everything. She collapsed into silence, realizing there was no saving face now. For a long moment, all we could hear was the faint buzz of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Do you know what hurt most? I asked. It wasn't the messages. It wasn't the lies. It was the way you smiled when you left, like you had already said goodbye to me. Claire covered her mouth to hold back another sob. I'm sorry, she whispered. Please. I'll quit my job. I'll block him. I'll do anything. Just don't end us like this. That's when I reached under the table and pulled out the envelope. I slid it across the wooden surface. Her trembling hands picked it up, eyes red and puffy. What's this? Read it. Inside were printed screenshots of her messages with Mike, copies of hotel receipts, and the digital forensics report I'd paid a private investigator to compile. At the back was a single-page legal document, drafted by my attorney that morning. Her breath hitched. A divorce petition, already signed, I said quietly. All that's missing is your signature. She looked up, panic spreading like wildfire across her face. No, Danny, please. You can't just, after everything we've been through. You're right, I said. I can't just end it without giving you something in return. Her eyes flickered with hope. You'll give me another chance. I smiled faintly. No, I'll give you closure. I stood, walking toward the window where the night sky reflected faintly on the glass. Remember that art gallery you always wanted to host your marketing event at? I booked it for tomorrow. She blinked, confused. What? Everyone from your company will be there. Even Mike. I sent out an email from your account, inviting the team to celebrate your new campaign success. She gasped. You didn't. Oh, I did, I said, turning back to face her. And during that event, a little slideshow will play. You know, the one you and Mike made on your trip. I thought it'd make quite the impression. Her face went pale. Danny, you can't do that. Please, I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation. You lost me first, I said quietly. The rest is just the price of the lie. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she dropped to her knees. I'm begging you, she cried. Please, don't destroy me like this. I walked past her, grabbed my coat, and paused at the door. Funny, I murmured. That's almost word for word what I whispered the night you left. Her sob echoed through the house as I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. And for the first time in months, the air felt clean again. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the car, parked a few blocks from the house, watching the clock on the dashboard tick past midnight. My hands rested on the steering wheel, but my mind was miles away, replaying every moment that led us here. The dinner she skipped, the birthday she forgot, the way she'd started locking her phone. I'd spent months pretending not to notice, convincing myself marriage meant forgiveness. But forgiveness doesn't mean blindness. And now that the curtain had been pulled, there was no going back. The gallery event was scheduled for the next evening. I'd set it up to look like a celebration, a cheerful night filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and congratulations. But underneath that illusion, a different story was waiting to be told. Still, I wasn't doing it for revenge alone. I wanted truth to breathe in the same room where the lies had once flourished. By morning, Claire's messages began flooding my phone. Claire, Danny, please. Don't go through with it. We can fix this. Claire, I'm begging you. Don't humiliate me. Claire, I'll tell him to transfer jobs. I'll do anything. I didn't reply. Sometimes silence says more than rage ever could. At noon, I met with Adam, my best friend since college, the one person I trusted enough to know everything. We sat at a diner by the highway, coffee steaming between us, rain tapping against the glass. You sure about this, man? Adam asked quietly. You expose her in front of everyone, There's no undoing it. Once it's out there, it's done. I took a slow sip of my coffee. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for me. I lived in her story for too long, believing I was part of a love that already ended. Tonight, I get to close it properly. Adam nodded, though worry lingered in his eyes. Just don't let it eat you alive afterward. I didn't answer. The truth was, I wasn't sure it wouldn't. By evening, the downtown gallery was glowing, soft jazz playing, lights cascading off glass walls, laughter spilling through the entrance. I stood in the corner near the catering table, dressed in a simple black suit, unnoticed among the sea of smiles. Then she walked in. Claire looked flawless, like guilt had been airbrushed right off her skin. Her hair was curled perfectly, her makeup gentle and soft. She'd always known how to look like innocence. When her eyes found me across the room, the color drained from her face. She froze mid-step. Mike trailed behind her, pretending not to notice the tension. His confidence was almost admirable, arrogance wrapped in charm. I nodded politely, lifting my glass in mock salute. He looked confused. She looked terrified. Moments later, the lights dimmed. A host walked to the front, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "tonight we celebrate the incredible work of Claire Mason, whose creative leadership brought this campaign to life." Applause erupted. She forced a shaky smile, clutching her champagne flute. I saw her lips tremble. She knew what was coming. The slideshow began on the massive projector behind her. It started innocently. Photos of her team, smiling during office events, the kind of pictures you'd expect. Then, suddenly the tone shifted. A familiar photo appeared. Claire and Mike at an airport, side by side, arms linked. Then another, her on a mountain balcony in Aspen, laughing, his hand brushing her hair. Then screenshots of messages, cropped to remove context, but clear enough to tell a story no one could mistake. Gasps echoed. The room went quiet. Mike's face went pale. Claire dropped her glass. It shattered against the marble floor, sending champagne splashing across her heels. "Turn it off," she screamed, voice breaking. "Turn it off, please." But the images kept rolling, ending with a caption. "To those who mistake loyalty for weakness, thank you for the lesson." When the lights came back on, every eye was on her. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Colleagues turned away. A few whispered. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Claire's chest heaved as she looked at me. Pure panic, then disbelief, then a quiet understanding. She knew she'd built this herself. She ran toward me, tears streaking her mascara. "Danny, how could you? You ruined me." I looked at her calmly. "No," I said softly. "You ruined us." Security moved in to escort her out as the host scrambled to control the chaos. I turned to leave, but before stepping out, I caught Mike's expression, shame hidden under fury. He lunged toward me, hissing, "You'll regret this." I stopped, meeting his gaze. I already did. Months ago, when I trusted you in my home. And then I walked out. Outside, the night was cold, but it felt cleaner than any air I'd breathed in months. The city hummed around me. Cars, laughter, life continuing. I leaned against the railing, overlooking the river, letting the wind cut through the noise still buzzing in my head. Adam found me a few minutes later. "You good?" he asked quietly. I let out a long breath. I don't know if I'm proud or just empty. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Both can be true. I watched the reflection of city lights ripple on the water. "She wanted freedom," I said quietly. "Now she has it." Adam nodded. "And you?" I turned my gaze to the skyline. "Now I have peace." As we walked back to the car, I glanced once more at my phone. Claire had sent one last message. "I never thought you'd be capable of this." I smiled faintly, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Neither did I. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds like nothing had happened. The world kept moving. Cars passing, birds chirping, neighbors waving. But inside me, everything was still. For the first time in years, there was no pretending. No walking on eggshells around someone I didn't recognize anymore. Just silence. And, strangely, peace. I brewed a pot of coffee, the same one Claire used to say smelled too strong. I didn't bother to adjust it. The house felt lighter without her perfume hanging in the air, without her nervous laughter filling the kitchen. Every item she'd left behind, her hairbrush, her favorite mug, the sweater draped over the couch, Felt like evidence from another life. My phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. Linda, she's staying with me. She's not well. Please don't make things harder than they already are. I typed a reply, then deleted it. There was nothing more to say. Claire had made her choices. I'd made mine. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock at the door. It was Adam, holding 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag. Figured you'd need breakfast, he said, walking in like he always did. I nodded, motioning toward the table. Thanks. Didn't realize how empty the house sounds without someone talking. He sat across from me. Empty's not always bad, he said quietly. Sometimes it's just space waiting for peace to fill it. We ate in silence for a while, the only sound being the creak of chairs and the faint ticking of the clock. Then Adam looked up. You know, you could have destroyed her completely last night. Career, reputation, everything. But you stopped short. Why? I leaned back in my chair. Because I wasn't trying to break her. I just wanted her to see. You can't rebuild something on a lie. She needed to feel what honesty costs when you bury it too deep. He nodded slowly, understanding. Later that afternoon, I drove out of the city toward the coastal cliffs where Claire and I used to go before everything changed. The same stretch of road where we'd once pulled over to watch the sunset and talk about the future. Back then, it felt like time would bend around us forever. I parked by the lookout point, stepped out, and let the wind sting my face. The ocean roared below, vast and endless, reminding me how small our storms really are compared to the horizon. For a long time, I stood there, replaying her words from the night before, the begging, the tears, the disbelief. Maybe she did love me once. Maybe part of her still did. But love without respect is like glass without structure. It only takes one crack to shatter. A small envelope sat on the passenger seat when I returned to the car. Inside were the signed divorce papers she dropped in my mailbox early that morning. No note, no apology, just a signature written in trembling ink. I folded the papers neatly and placed them in the glove compartment. Not out of bitterness, but closure. As I started the engine, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. For months, I'd looked like a man lost inside someone else's lie. But now, the man staring back at me looked steady. Adam's words echoed in my mind. Empty's not always bad. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. I booked a solo trip for the first time in years. Nothing extravagant, just a few days hiking through the Colorado mountains. No girls' trip, no pretending. Just silence, nature, and truth. Before shutting the lid, I paused for a moment and typed a single message to Claire. Daniel, I forgive you, but I'm finally choosing me. I hit send, not waiting for a reply. Some messages aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to end things properly. Outside, the last light of evening faded behind the trees, and the house settled into quiet again. For the first time in a long while, that silence didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom.